This occurred not long after I turned 18 years old. My girlfriend had also turned 18 a few days ago, which meant her parents trusted her and I to be alone in the house while they went out for dinner. My girlfriend had always been a fan of horror films and creepy things in general. She loved reading creepypastas and watching dark and gory films such as Hostel and Saw. One evening, while I was sitting with her while she finished watching the last few minutes of The Human Centipede, we both had a few drinks, and I was about to go to bed, but she suggested we look for other horror films to watch online. Despite my tiredness, I agreed. A few minutes of her searching on the laptop revealed all of her favourite horror films the websites had been taken down. That's when she suggested a chilling alternative. "Ever heard of the dark web?" she asked. I heard whispers around school about it, but never took much interest. "Yeah, I have," I replied, trying to act brave. A smile of excitement appeared on her face. Could tell she was slightly drunk in that sort of I don't care what happens mood. I decided to go to the kitchen to fetch her some water. When I came back, she noticed she had a site open called Sensor View. The site displayed the pictures of movie posters I had never seen before. I correctly assumed it was a site that sold banned horror films from other countries. All of them looked pretty unoriginal, nothing I hadn't seen before, all except for one. The one my girlfriend was hovering the mouse clicker over. The movie was called The Visiting. The display picture was simply a white background with The Visiting written in Arial black font. We were both fascinated as to what it was. I took out my iPhone and searched for the plot of the film, yet I found nothing. Just a few stupid YouTube videos and irrelevant forums. When I looked back up from my phone, I caught a glimpse of my girlfriend typing in her name and address into various boxes on the page titled Order Details. Before, to my horror, she clicked the submit button. I was caught in a state of anger and shock. I maniacally shouted at her, explaining how dangerous it was dispersing her personal details into such a fucked up place as the dark web. Could see my attempts to correct her were futile. As the alcohol was hitting her hard, she was not paying attention whatsoever. Frustrated, I went to bed, deciding to discuss it with her in the next morning. The next morning, she seemed to have a little regret over her actions. She spent the morning explaining how she was curious and she was in no danger. She even commented that the experience would be fun. However, I wasn't convinced. She told me to not tell her parents, fearing they would not trust her to be alone in the house again. I promised not to say anything and headed back home. 3 days later, I was visiting her house again. Her parents had gone to meet some friends from work for a drink, and we were watching The Exorcist on DVD. During a particularly non-eventful part of the film, my girlfriend was joking about how horrified I looked a few days ago when we were discussing the dark web. She said she had only received fairly professional-looking email confirming the order and nothing else. I began to yield her arguments. Perhaps I was overreacting. It was merely seconds after our conversation finished that an aggressive knock came from the door. It sounded like it was from 2 doors, but I dismissed this as an echo. I began to look concerned, while my girlfriend began laughing once again at the look of terror on my face. I put on a fake smile as I walked towards the door. It erased clean from my face when I saw who stood outside. A tall, stocky man wearing a ski mask and dark clothes stood at the front door wielding a hammer. I was about to call to my girlfriend to call the police, and a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. I raced back into the room to see my girlfriend pointing to the window facing the garden. An identical man stood at the window, only he was holding a small bat. I grabbed my girlfriend's hand and sprinted up the stairs. We hid in the master bedroom while I called the police on my mobile, who told me they would be here as soon as possible. As I finished the call, I heard one of the doors smash and a loud rapid footsteps heading upstairs. They were in the house. Without thinking, I pushed the window open and told my girlfriend to jump, run, and not look back. She jumped and landed safely onto the grassy garden below. I was about to follow, but hesitated, wondering if I could put up a fight and in doing so allow my girlfriend more time to escape. It was then I heard a deep, aggressive voice just outside the room. The man shouted something in a foreign language whilst I heard laughs from 2 of the men outside. All bravery evaporated and I jumped, landing harshly on my ankle. The adrenaline racing around my body allowed me to power through the pain, and I eventually caught up to my girlfriend. We were running for what seemed like hours, but in reality it was most likely 10 minutes. We ended up next to the local park, a safe distance away from their house. My girlfriend began sobbing, and I comforted her, trying to avoid my own desire to break down. It was not long after that when the police called me on my mobile. They were at the house, and as far as I could tell, the attackers were gone. After taking a few minutes to compose ourselves, my girlfriend and I made our way back. There were 3 police officers at the house. One was examining each room for any damage or evidence left by the men. One was comforting my girlfriend, while the other was asking me questions. The shock was clouding my memory. I was only able to tell them a few details about their clothing and the fact they spoke in an Eastern European language. My girlfriend handed over her phone and laptop while the police went to investigate, and they left. He advised us to tell the homeowners of the situation, lock up, and suggested that everyone spend the rest of the night with friends or relatives. So we both spent the night at my parents' house, while my girlfriend's parents stayed with friends. I remember my girlfriend crying over the phone while telling them about the situation. They were furious. A few days later, the police visited my girlfriend. It was by luck I was at her house that afternoon. Their investigations had led them to some disturbing findings. Turns out the visiting was a nickname locals in a small Polish town gave to a number of brutal murders that occurred in the 90s in the local area. The murders were committed by an unknown gang and were initially dismissed as invasions gone wrong. All the victims were bludgeoned to death in their homes. Although nothing of value was taken from the house, it was only 2 years after the murders began that a family survived an attack by the gang. The husband was able to give the Polish police a few details of the attackers, but all that he revealed was that they wore ski masks, wielded blunt objects, and one had a video camera. However, the crucial evidence was that one of the attackers had dropped a backpack containing 1 blank videotape and 3 other videotapes with content on them. The 3 tapes show the horrific murders of the other victims and the attackers. The police came to a shocking conclusion that these men were creating snuff films to be sold to whatever sickos paid for them. A national worldwide manhunt began, but after 3 years of investigation, nothing was found. I remember feeling incredibly cold as the police told me their findings. They went on to tell me that the men most likely fled Poland during the police search and could possibly have entered the UK as workers when Poland joined the European Union. The only thing they knew for certain was that these men were operating once again, decades after their last murder, and they were using the dark web as a way of deciding their next victims. Police told my girlfriend's family to move in with a relative while the investigation was ongoing. It was not long after that when my girlfriend broke up with me by her parents' wishes. I assumed her parents suspected me of forcing her into using the dark web. My girlfriend discovered that the various documents containing her information had been taken from the house. I'm not allowed to see her, but her parents still speak. From what they tell me, her mental state has become incredibly fragile. It broke my heart to hear this. I can safely say the police will never find the attackers using the information I gave, which means they will most likely strike again. I can only hope the next time they do, it will lead to those bastards ending up behind bars, and not the creation of another tape to add to their collection. Be safe and avoid the dark web. This happened a few years ago. I haven't touched any technology after what happened until now. So I've been using technology since I was a kid. At 12, I learned how to write scripts and programs to hack into systems, and ever since I was hooked. Fast forward to my second year in university, I'm now quite good at hacking, albeit somewhat cocky. Throughout high school I made a lot of money hacking. People would come to me normally to recover their hacked social media accounts or to hack into their boyfriend's phone to read their text messages. I was known as the guy to go to if you wanted something hacked. Even my school occasionally came to me to help with some script kiddie shut down the school's website with low orbit iron cannon. Like I said, I made a lot of money doing this through high school. Halfway through my second year of university, I started getting bored of this. The money was good, but there was no thrill. One of my friends told me about this cool thing called the dark web. I had heard of the dark web before, but it never seemed that interesting. My friend told me about how it was full of drugstores, weapon dealers, hackers for hire, and a bunch of fucked up animal and child porn. As a hacker and a stoner, the dark web seemed right up my alley. When I came home that day, I fired up my computer and did some quick googling. With my fast knowledge of technology, it didn't take me long to get set up with Tor and Tails installed on my computer. I sped through the hidden wiki, finding most of the websites boring or dead. I texted my friend asking if he had any interest in linked directories. He replied, "Here are the few of the ones I use." He sent me about 5 links to the directories. I decided to click the second one and see what I could find. I scrolled through the directory for a few minutes. It was right about how interesting the dark web was. I couldn't figure out where I started, so I clicked on the chat room. The website looked old and primitive, but surprisingly, there was one person online. I started talking to him. He seemed kind of shady, but it was better than scrolling through a bunch of dead websites. He said he'd been on the dark web for a while, finding someone with the vast knowledge of what's on the dark web. I asked him if he had any interesting links. He sent me a link, then immediately left the website. I had no idea what was hidden behind the link. Looking back on it, oh god, I wish I hadn't clicked it. At the time, my own curiosity overwhelmed me, and I clicked the link without giving it a second thought. After it finally loaded, due to Tor's notoriously slow loading time, I was presented with a pop-up box, and it said in red text, "If you don't know what's next, you're probably in the wrong place." There were 2 buttons, continue and leave. I instantly clicked continue, the biggest mistake of my life. It brought up a black screen page with the blood red title at the top of the screen, The Freak Show. In the middle of the screen, there was a chat box. A message popped up from someone titled admin. He said, "Hello." I said, "Hello, interesting website you've got here." He replied, "Thank you. Are you here to view the show?" I thought to myself, what show? Out of curiosity, I replied with yes. He said, "Since you're a first-time viewer, it will cost you $500 via Bitcoin in order for you to view the show. Future viewings are free." From all the money I made hacking, I had enough fuel for my curiosity, so I went ahead and paid the $500. After paying him, I was surprised I was given a zip file instead of a link. I had developed a custom-made antivirus that appeared to work well, so I risked downloading it. When I unzipped the folder, there were 2 files inside, an installer and a file named readme.txt. I started opening the text file. It just said, "Do not send this installer to anyone, or else." I went ahead and closed the text file and opened the installer. It took about 15 minutes to install, which is strange for my computer. After installing, it opened up automatically. Across the screen it said, "Hello, welcome to the Freak Show. We use a custom program for our streams instead of live streaming on Tor due to Tor being too slow. We also need the extra security." After about 10 seconds on the screen changed to a countdown with a chat room next to it. At this point I was starting to feel that whatever happened next would not be good. The timer displayed that there would be 30 minutes until the stream started. I set my screen name to James Ken 157. Not my real name, but at least I needed an alias. I said hi in the chat, but was ignored. I waited 30 minutes after the timer hit 0, a video feed began. On the screen, there was a guy in the mask with 3 people side by side in front of him. He started speaking with a voice changer to mask his voice. He said, "Welcome to the 26th stream of The Freak Show. We are happy to see all our old viewers and a few new ones. We will now randomly choose who gets to choose who to kill first and how to kill them." At that point, I realized I was fucked. I was in too much shock to close the window. I watched as the feed turned into a bunch of names scrolling by until it landed on someone named Gore725. I watched as he made his commands. First, stab him in the kneecaps, then cut off his fingers. After that, gouge out his eyeballs. When that's finished, drill into his stomach and to finish him off, burn him with a hot metal. I watched as the sicko did all of this. I watched as the victim screamed in pain. After everything was done, he said, "Now for the next one." After he said that, I snapped out of it and went to close the page. When I clicked X, it said, "Sorry, no leaving midstream." I was trapped. The wheel popped up again, but this time it landed on me. I couldn't respond. Instead, I typed in the chat, "You sick fucks, why are you doing this?" I was met with all the people in the chat calling me things like pussy, dumbass, and retard. I then said, "I'm calling the police." I shouldn't have said that. The owner of the site said, "Call the police and you'll be in next week's stream. Logan." That made my heart freeze. He knew my real name. He then pasted my parents' names, my address, school age, and IP in the chat. I immediately went to Task Manager to close door on the program. As soon as the Task Manager opened it, it said not responding. The guy said, "Don't try that in the chat." I pulled the plug on my computer without a doubt. My screen went black. I ran to my parents' room, told them what happened, said we had to move. They believed me and called the police. The police took care of everything and put us under police protection. Within a few months, they found the website owner. He was a 32-year-old man who lived off a combination of welfare and the money he made from his red room. It was many years later before I finally started using technology again. The dark web is an abyss of terrible things. If you're smart, you'll stay off the surface web, but I can't control what you do. I'm a computer technician by profession. I worked for a company that was contracted by local businesses and private consumers set up internet connections, install software and repair any sort of computer problems they can come up with. So naturally, I got all the crazy stories and problems that these people could come up with. I swear, some of these people just don't know how to work a computer. Even in this day and age. Anyway, one day I got a call from a local business complaining that their internet was acting up and they must have a virus. So I shook my head, thinking that someone must have unplugged network cable and downloaded Trojan horse accidentally. I got up and drove over to the business to address the problem. As soon as I arrived, the man who called me immediately spotted me and started going on and on about hackers, and how much he hated Microsoft Windows, and how many viruses it created, and all that nonsense that I usually received when addressing business problems. He led me to his computer and pulled out my laptop and sat down in front of it and began to work. He told me good luck, and I walked away to go to do whatever it was he did in his downtime. I opened the browser. He used no surprise, and it opened to about blank. It didn't even have a home page. So I tried connecting to google.com, 404 error. Well, I know that google.com definitely existed, so there was a problem with his internet connection. I opened his network and sharing center to see if I could use a built-in troubleshooter to diagnose the problem, but I gave myself a well-deserved facepalm when I saw he wasn't connected to any network at all. So I searched for networks and found a few wireless connections for him to connect to. They're all WEP encrypt, and I was almost positive that he didn't know the key, so I broke out my laptop and ran a WEP cracking tool to get this computer up and running again. I was waiting for my tool to find the WEP key. Another network suddenly showed up on my computer, this one unprotected with an SSID consisting of a random hexadecimal string. Now I was extremely bored waiting for this guy to return, so I decided to connect to it all and take a little look around to see where it was coming from. I connected without problems and opened up a toolkit of cracking tools to see if I could find any source for his connection. As I was having my fun hacking away at this unprotected network, my computer froze up, albeit only for a second or two, but this didn't happen much. It caught me by surprise. Shrugged it off as poor internet speed there and kept on going. A couple minutes later, however, it happened again. A few minutes after that, once again, each time getting longer and longer. Weird, I thought to myself, what's with his network? It was then that things started getting really interesting. After the long string of pauses, my screen flickered a little bit and, out of nowhere, my browser opened by itself. Now I was worried that I had somehow infected my computer with some kind of malware by connecting to this network, and I proceeded to close the browser and begin to disconnect from the network before anything worse could happen. But I couldn't disconnect. No matter how many times I clicked the little disconnect button, my computer didn't respond. Despite how everything on my screen running fine. Fuck, I thought to myself, this is going to be a long day. And just as I was about to hit the power button on my laptop to perform a hard reset, my browser opened again, this time with that little chat box open. Hello. I stared at the screen for a couple of seconds, not quite sure what was going to go on. I want to talk to you. Now I had heard about these AL programs that had been programmed responses to simulate conversation with people, and I was not impressed. This was one nasty virus. You need to leave this network now. This is your last warning. Maybe an automated security program designed to keep hackers out. I'll have to admit, I was impressed with it. I had never seen any like this before. I'm telling you one last time. Leave. Now. I don't know what made me do it, but I responded to this program. Or what. And the next response scared me more than anything in this world had. The program began listing information about me. My name, address, telephone number, credit card information, my parents' names, their address. My heart sank in my chest, and all the colour immediately left my face. I couldn't move. I just sat there, paralysed with fear. But what came next was even worse. Don't look at me like that. My webcam was on. You really shouldn't stare. H3 man 4694. You might see something you regret. Suddenly the most horrifying images you could ever imagine flashed on my screen. Images of disemboweled humans, human sacrifice, detached limbs, cannibals eating people, video clips of mass suicides and firing lines. My heart was racing. My body was shaking in utter fear of the images I was being shown. They're seared in my brain. Those were the things that no one should ever see. I mustered the strength I had left. I hit the power button, and on my computer I slammed it shut. I ran to the bathroom and threw up a couple of times. I was drenched in sweat. I could barely compose myself. It took me about 20 minutes to go back to my computer, and even then I had a hard time getting near it. I looked over at my client's computer, and it was connected to the wireless network I was cracking earlier. It was working fine now. Just then, my client returned and thanked me for fixing his internet. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed my laptop and left. Going down the elevator with my laptop under my shoulder was terrible. I just wanted to leave that place and get my laptop replaced as soon as I could. 5th floor, 4th floor, come on. 3rd floor, 2nd floor, come on, goddammit. Ping, ground floor, open up, come on. And just as the door opened from behind me, a whisper, you really shouldn't stare. H3 man 4694. I immediately left the office building and drove back to my office. I promptly gave my laptop to my boss, telling him I had become non-functional and that I required a replacement. I told him that someone had accidentally spilled coffee on it during my last trip, and then it short-circuited. In reality, I made a pit stop on my way back to hardware store and bought the most powerful magnet I could find, and ran it over the hard drive several times. I wasn't risking that thing even turning it on again, so after a few short minutes of the keep better track of your shit speech, he took the laptop and told me he would get better replacement tomorrow. It was probably the most satisfying thing I could ever hear. For a few days, everything went back to normal. No more AL chat boxes, no more funky unprotected internet connections, no more disturbing images popping up on my screen. I was safe, until the nightmares started again. I remember the first one I had very vividly, and I shudder when I think about it, but I'll tell you nevertheless. It began with me walking through a large city. I remember seeing large buildings and people walking up and down streets on their way to work or shopping. Whatever it is city people do. As I was walking, I found myself in the front of a very large building, much taller than the rest, and for some reason I wanted to go inside and take a look. So I walked through the front doors and took a look around. It was a fairly normal office building, people moving around, talking on their cell phones and whatnot, minding their own business. I realised that there wasn't much to see here, so I turned around to leave, but something was wrong. The doors to the building were gone. I walked forward thinking that there was some new type of door that blended in into the wall or something, but nothing was there. I found myself very confused, so I turned back around to maybe ask the receptionist where the exit was, but she was gone too. Everyone was gone. The lobby was empty. No sounds, no people, no furniture, just an empty white room. Now I was scared. I began to panic and pace around the room, looking for any way out, but there was nothing, nowhere to go. So I began to run at the walls, trying to break them down, but all my attempts were futile. After about 4 or 5 bum rushes against the wall, I sat down, out of breath, looking down at the floor. I felt like I was there for hours, just staring at the ground. Then, suddenly, I heard a small whisper. I looked up to see a black silhouette of a man facing me, stuck out his hand and whispered ever so slightly, "Trying to leave?" For some reason, I trusted this finger. Don't ask me why, dream logic. But I felt like this figure was going to show me the way out, somehow. So I took his hand and got up and said, "Yes, can you show me the way, eh? Can you show me the way?" "Of course, follow closely." He turned around and began to hover away from me, so I followed. I don't know how, but he began to create hallways and staircases out of the room I was trapped in, leading me all sorts of ways as if through a giant labyrinth. We climbed up and up and up until we finally reached a hallway that had a door at the end of it. It was then that he stopped moving and turned back toward me. I could make out a faint smile on his face as he pointed toward the door. "Is this the exit?" "It is." I was so happy to finally get out of this place, so I grabbed the door handle and began to turn it as he placed his hand on my shoulder. I turned to look at him, and his word made my heart race to this day. "But remember, H3 Man 4694, you shouldn't ever stare." My eyes widened and his face began to morph into that of a horrible, horned creature. His teeth became like razors and his mouth was filled with fire. I threw him off of me and opened the door, only to find my worst fears behind it. Dead people were hanging from the ceiling, and blood covered the room like wallpaper. I screamed, but nothing came out. I turned away from the room, and as fast as I could, I back away from the way I came. But it was not long before I realised that I was hopelessly lost in this labyrinth that the demon had led me through. I ran and ran, but couldn't find the way out. There was no way out. I was trapped in this nightmare. I started hurling myself at the walls in an attempt to leave this evil place, but nothing was working. I thought I was going to die here, and that was when I awoke. I was drenched in sweat, my heart racing, and my breathing was heavy. I looked around, and it took me a couple of minutes to realise that it was just a nightmare. A horrible, horrible nightmare. I got up, out of bed, and walked over to my bathroom to wash myself of the sweat I had just doused myself in. As I washed my face, I noticed something in the mirror, small light coming from my room. I turned around, and I saw it, sitting at the foot of my bed, my personal computer. I slowly walked over to examine it, thinking I had accidentally left it on before going to bed, which I rarely do, so I bent down and picked it up. Command prompt was open, but it was blank, no prompt or anything, just that little black box with the white cursor flashing at me. It was then that I remembered that I didn't even use my computer before going in bed. In fact, I had left it in the kitchen. My webcam light turned on. Command prompt began to type. "What's the matter, H3Man4694? Bad dream?" Now, immediately after seeing what had happened appeared on the screen, I did what anyone else would have done. I removed the battery from my computer, threw it into a safe I kept in my bedroom, and locked it tight. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, paralysed with fear. This was no ordinary nightmare. This was real. For the next few days, I had the same nightmare every night, each time as traumatising as the first. And worst of all, each time after waking up, I could hear my laptop fan inside that safe. I knew what it was doing, but I never looked. I didn't want to see that message again, and I didn't want to scar myself even further. After 3 nights of experiencing that terrible nightmare, I stopped sleeping. I couldn't see those horrible images anymore. I couldn't face that demon anymore. It was too much for me. I kept myself up with caffeine and vitamin B, but motor functions declined and my cognitive ability deteriorated. After the second consecutive night, I was so weak, so tired, so afraid. On my 3rd day of self-induced insomnia, my boss walked over to my desk and gave it to me straight. "You look like you dried up dog shit, man. Go home and get some sleep." I looked up at him. I wanted to tell him so badly, but I know if I did, He would just tell me to get my shit together and come back tomorrow. So I nodded my head in agreement, picked up my stuff and walked out. I was driving home. I turned on the radio to help keep me awake. I had not slept in almost 60 hours. But instead of my favourite tunes, all that came out of the car was my speakers was static. Just a bunch of white noise. I started changing channels, but everything was the same. Static. So I turned it off and drove home in silence. As I pulled it into my driveway, I noticed through my front window that there was a flickering light coming from inside my house. It was my TV. I left the damn thing on before leaving to work. I wasn't surprised though. Not sleeping for 2 consecutive nights was definitely not taking a toll on me. With the car in park, and I decided to pull the keys out when my radio turned on again. More static. Was I hallucinating? Christ, I'm losing it. No, you're not. I almost shit my pants. Did that come from the radio? Either I've gone nuts, or that was extremely coincidental. I'm still here, you know. Holy fuck. This time I was sure that deep, static voice just came out of the speakers of my car. I looked at my radio to see what the station it was tuned to, but the screen was just a bunch of random symbols and letters that didn't make any sense. I started to panic. I immediately turned the car off and almost ran into my house. No, they couldn't follow me everywhere. I locked my computer in my safe. This couldn't be happening to me. I whipped around to look at my television, which I'd forgotten was still on. I swear, I wish the goddamn Teletubbies were on. In fact, I wish anything was on. But there wasn't. It was just static. No sound, no signal, just static. Boom! I almost fell over backward in fear. The television sound came on with a huge bang. The static was very audible. White noise filled the room. I could feel my heart pounding as my hands began to shake. No, no, please, no. The static began to get louder and louder until I couldn't even hear myself think. I covered my ears and began shouting to myself, "Stop it! Stop it now! Please!" And soon it stopped. I looked up slowly at my television. Nothing. Black screen. It was off. I stood up slowly, still shaking from what had just happened. I walked slowly toward my television, fearing that it may turn on again and blow my eardrums out. I got right up to the screen, reached behind my TV and unplugged the power, stopped them from gaining access. I stared at it for a couple of seconds, hoping I had stopped them from gaining access. I had backed away slowly, breathing more evenly now. I stopped it, and that's when I saw that face on my television screen, that black silhouette from my dreams. It was here. It was real. He smiled at me with the most evil smile you could possibly imagine, and I couldn't look away. I was too afraid to move. Suddenly, he began to speak in the most frightening voice imaginable. It was deep and booming, somewhat distorted, as if I was speaking through a voice masker. It sounded like 10 voices in one, all as evil as the other. "Do you fear me?" I couldn't move. "I said, do you fear me?" My body was shaking uncontrollably. "Do you know these people?" The next images I saw, they were the most traumatizing images in my lifetime. I saw pictures of my family, my friends, people I had met through my life. He had them. This couldn't have been happening. "I told you not to stare." And probably out of sheer adrenaline, I snapped out of my paralysis and picked up a small glass bottle sitting on my table next to me and held it as hard as I could at the TV. Sparks went everywhere. Shattered glass covered the floor. I looked up at the TV and it was broken. The screen had cracked and it was no longer functioning. The demon was gone. I mustered what strength I had left and I walked up to my room. I was so tired. I fell to my knees and began to cry. When suddenly I heard it, my laptop fan. I slowly raised my head and there it was, sitting on the edge of my bed. Command prompt to open, webcam on, the screen read. That wasn't very nice. I screamed as loud as I could, "Leave me the fuck alone!" I screamed up my laptop and threw it out the window as hard as I could. This was going to end today. I walked over to the window. I had thrown my computer out to make sure that it was shattered. I wanted to be nothing left at it, but I looked out the window. I didn't see any broken laptop. I saw him, looking up at me, smiling. I backed away slowly from the window. I couldn't think. I couldn't comprehend anything at the moment. He was real. He was here. I backed up into my room, slammed the door shut, and stand on the floor trying to formulate some kind of plan to escape from this thing. or more importantly, how to rid myself of this demon forever. Bang, bang, bang. I immediately stood upright. He was knocking at my door. Bang, bang, bang. I heard it. He wanted in. I heard him knocking over and over again. Incessant pounding on my front door, always in threes. I began thinking frantically, what was I going to do? Should I stay in here? Should I get a weapon? Should I call the police? I didn't know. And the knocking continued. I was pacing right in my room, desperately trying to think of what to do. My heart was racing, my body purely running on of adrenaline at this point, and suddenly, as if perfectly on cue, the knocking stopped. I stopped pacing. Was he gone? Did he just decide to leave? I had to be sure. I slowly opened my door and looked around. Nothing.
What are you feeling? That's what TikTok's for. For feeling your dog could solve...
No! Slowly opened my door and looked around. Nothing. I moved out of my room and toward the stairs and peeked down. Still nothing. I slowly moved down the stairs and saw my broken TV and the shattered glass on the floor. Was it over? As I made my way into the living room, I began to feel cold. Very cold. I looked around to see if I could find my thermostat, and something else caught my eye. My front door. It was wide open. I swear I almost had a heart attack. Was he inside? I had no way of knowing, but the first thing that came to my mind was that I had to close that door in case he wasn't, so I quickly moved to the door and slammed it shut. It wasn't cold anymore. I slumped down, back against my front door. I was unbearably tired. I needed sleep, more than anything in this world. I just needed sleep. My eyes began to close, my muscles began to relax, my breathing slowed, and right as my eyes shut, a shroud of sleep began to cover me, his face right in front of me. My eyes snapped open to see his face right up against mine. He was staring at me, smiling. I had no strength left to do anything about it. He slowly stood up and reached out his hand. He said to me in an evil whisper of his, "Get up, I want to show you something." I shook my head in disagreement. There was no goddamn way I was following him. He was going to force me to live that nightmare. He was going to finish killing my mind before he was going to destroy my body. I say, "Get up, you have no other choice." All I could do was look at him. I stared into his amorphous face, as if looking right through him. "You know what I can do. Now get up." He wasn't going to let me die there. He wasn't going to leave me alone. He wanted me for himself. He was right. I had no other choice. So I raised my hand up and grabbed his arm. Somehow, as if my legs were moving by themselves, I began to follow him up my staircase. He was going to torture me. We started to walk into my bedroom. The door was shut. As we were in my front room, he pointed at my door handle and looked at me and smiled. I knew there was no way out. I had no strength left to run, no strength left to think, no strength left to feel. So I grabbed the handle and opened the door. When I looked inside, expecting to see dead bodies and burning flesh, I saw something that caught me by surprise. It was my laptop, the one I had thrown out the window earlier. It was sitting on my bed. The demon walked into the room and stood at the foot of my bed, looked at me and said, "Come, you need to use this device." So I walked forward once again, as if not by my own will, sat down on my bed and picked up the computer. Nothing was open, just my desktop with regular icons. Nothing strange, this. Now that all I could think about was probably the strangest thing of all. It has been a very long time since I have spoken with a human. I was too tired to respond. I forgot how fun it was to distort your world and watch you break down in fear. Somehow I managed to say, "What do you want from me?" I could ask you the same thing. You were the one who brought me here in the first place. I was so confused, so tired, I just wanted him to kill me. "I'm not going to kill you." There's no fun in that. I knew that he was sane. I tried to feel something, but there was no way. I was too depleted, just an empty shell. "I'm going to give you two choices now, two very important choices." I looked at him with most lifeless stare. "Listen closely. Your first choice is to live the rest of your days with me. You could have great fun torturing you the rest of your life. I had no response. Or you can choose to send me to another, because I would love a change of scenery. All I could do was stare at him, and out of nowhere I found the strength to say, I hate you. He smiled as I said this. He leaned down, put his face next to mine, and whispered, Make your choice, human. I suddenly, a window opened on my screen. It looked like a sort of VPN client. Some kind of network was being hosted on my computer. For some reason, the SSID was permanently searched into my memory. For a few minutes, nothing happened. The only one in the network, then out of nowhere, ping, a message box appeared on that read, Someone has joined the network. Would you like to welcome them? The demon began to smile once again. He said, Make your choice. I clicked the OK button. A little chat box opened up. I began to type, Hello? Following that night, the demon then has been haunting me left my life. He vanished as soon as I sent that message, along with the computer sitting in my lap. I wanted to feel my wrath for what I had done. Hell, I wanted to feel anything, but all I could do was close my eyes and sleep. When I next woke, I looked at the clock and discovered that I had slept for 26 hours. It was the first night of sleep I had gotten in 3 days. It has been several years since my experiences with the demon, and I have been using a public computer to write these stories because I was too afraid to use my own again. And it has taken me that long to muster the courage to tell my story to the people of the world, to warn them of that demon that was likely still out there, torturing people for his own amusement, forcing them to pass him on to more people through their internet connections. Beware, he was out there somewhere, and he gave no mercy.